Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller. A former CIA agent pled guilty in federal court to drugging and sexually abusing and sexually assaulting multiple women during his overseas assignments.
A U.S. Embassy employee is accused of drugging and sexually assaulting multiple women. He has San Diego ties and was arrested right here in our county. Good evening. I'm Kimberly Hunt.
And I'm Steve Atkinson. Our Team 10 investigator Melissa Messiha shows us the shocking allegations against him.
Court documents said Brian Jeffrey Raymond grew up here in San Diego County. I learned he was arrested in a gym parking lot in La Mesa earlier this month. While he's facing just one charge now in connection to one woman, prosecutors say he's being investigated for crimes against at least 21 other women. An experienced sexual predator. That's what the U.S. Attorney's Office called Brian Jeffrey Raymond. He worked for the government for 23 years, most recently at the U.S. Embassy in Mexico City. Federal prosecutors said for years he has exerted power and control over unconscious women, undressing them, sexually assaulting them, photographing them, and recording them without their knowledge or consent. Court documents show he's at MCC in downtown in quarantine custody due to COVID protocols. His attorney tried to get him released, but prosecutors said he poses a substantial threat to women. The initial investigation showed in May, police responded to Raymond's apartment in Mexico City. They responded to reports of a naked, hysterical woman desperately screaming for help. She said she met Raymond on Tinder. Their date eventually led to his apartment, eating and drinking from a wine glass. The victim said she suddenly blacked out. There were several injuries found during her sexual assault exam. On Raymond's devices and iCloud, investigators said they found approximately 400 photos and videos, some dating back to 2011. They showed at least 21 different unconscious women, some fully nude. Law enforcement also said they found his internet searches included passed out black girl, deep sleep, and Ambien and alcohol side effects. The alleged assaults took place from Mexico City to Virginia. Raymond's parents live in La Mesa. Court documents show he moved back to their home in June after he resigned from his job. In an interview with federal agents, his parents said they feel like they do not know their son and were surprised when he came to visit. His behavior escalating, prosecutors said. Even a week before his arrest, Raymond met another woman who only remembered small fragments of their sexual encounter. In a court hearing this week, Raymond was ordered to be transferred to D.C. His attorney did not return my request for comment. Melissa Messiha, Team 10.
Now, according to reports from the Department of Justice, 47-year-old Brian Jeffrey Raymond pled guilty in federal court to drugging and sexually assaulting and sexually abusing multiple women while he was assigned to embassy-based housing in Mexico City and other locations between 2006 and 2020. And according to those reports, Brian Jeffrey Raymond allegedly participated in allegedly recording and photographing 28 victims who were nude or partially nude and were rendered unconscious when they went with him to embassy-based housing to have dinner and drinks. And as they allegedly had dinner and drinks with Brian Jeffrey Raymond, these women were rendered unconscious by drugged drinks and food. And after they were rendered unconscious, this is where Brian Jeffrey Raymond would allegedly undress these women and then film these women as he was sexually abusing them and sexually assaulting them. And Brian Jeffrey Raymond had did this for over 14 years and wasn't found out until 2020 after a naked woman was seen screaming for help from the balcony of Raymond's Mexico City residence. And it was after this woman who was seen screaming for help was contacted police and contacted people from the Department of Justice that they found out about Brian Jeffrey Raymond's behavior because this woman said that after consuming food and drink provided by Raymond, she couldn't remember how she wound up in that condition. And this is where the federal government decided to arrest Brian Jeffrey Raymond for the sexual abuse of this woman. And after they searched his cell phone, they found hundreds of videos of Raymond allegedly participating in the undressing and sexual assault of multiple women. And this is where Brian Jeffrey Raymond wanted to plead guilty to two counts of sexual abuse as related to the woman who called for help, and then pled guilty to one count of transporting obscene material across international lines. But he wanted to withdraw those charges, hoping he could get out on a technicality. However, this technicality didn't work because he couldn't prove that the agents unlawfully searched his phone, and he wound up pleading guilty for all of these sex crimes that were presented as related to charging with 25 counts of sexual abuse, aggravated sexual abuse, and transporting obscene material. And Brian Jeffrey Raymond wound up pleading guilty and will be sentenced to 30 years in prison. Now, the Department of Justice sees the behavior of Brian Jeffrey Raymond as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of the behavior of Brian Jeffrey Raymond, it fits the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And it's clear to me that Brian Jeffrey Raymond's behavior fits the chapters I wrote in The Man Crisis, talking about the sexual deviancy of the beta male and the sexual frustration of the beta male. Now, the reason why Brian Jeffrey Raymond was motivated to participate in these deviant sex crimes is because he didn't feel safe about expressing his natural masculinity or his natural sexuality. And with most beta males, they are oftentimes raised to suppress their natural masculinity and their natural sexuality. And because these men are taught to suppress their natural masculinity and their natural sexuality at an early age, they learn the only way they can express their masculinity and their sexuality is in a place called the secret world. Now, the secret world is an imaginary place where a beta male goes to express himself in a masculine fashion and in a sexual fashion. And with Brian Jeffrey Raymond, I believe that what he wanted to do was use his job as a CIA agent in order to keep his world smooth. And in order to keep his world smooth, where he could remain a professional CIA agent by day, he would be able to express his natural masculinity and sexuality in the secret world when he was assigned and stationed on assignment. And what Brian Jeffrey Raymond would do is, under the cover of night, go out here and get involved with women. And as he got involved with these women, he would go out here and drug and undress and abuse these women. And as he was doing this, he would go out here and be able to express what he thought was his natural masculinity and natural sexuality. However, he was participating in a series of sex crimes, and as he participated in that series of sex crimes, he wanted to be able to have his sexual expression be in a secret place, which was only one he could go out here and be able to access, and no one else would know about it at all. This is how most beta males operate as related to their participating in maintaining their smooth world. They don't want people to know that they have natural masculine behavior like being sexual or being attracted to women. So what they do is go out here and look to express that behavior in a secret place where only they are the ones who can control the behaviors they participate in and control access to all of the evidence. So what Brian Jeffrey Raymond was doing was he would go out here and talk to these women, invite them to dinner at the homes that he was assigned to, and then as he was there, he would drug these women's food and drinks, render them unconscious, and then he would go out here and feel like he was safe for him to express himself sexually by going out here and taking these women's clothes off without their consent, touching their bodies, and even videotaping the evidence so that he could have a record of the sexual encounter that he could only be the one who had control over. For the beta male, sex is all about power and control, and it is not about sharing an intimate relationship with another person or coming closer with another person. No, it is all about this individual being able to get their power as related to their masculinity and their sexuality. And as they get their power, they become extremely detached from the people they get involved with. And as they get detached from those people, they don't even see those women as people with feelings, thoughts, and desires, or look to have a personal connection with them. No, they see these women as objects as related to the fantasies they are having in their rose-colored reality. And in that rose-colored reality, everything is completely distorted as related to their perception of the world. In their perception of the world, a woman is not a person. She is like a doll or an object that he can go out here and take the clothes off of and touch however he wants. And then after he finishes touching this woman the way that he wants, he then waits for her to wake back up and waits for the world to go back to being smooth, where he can go back to being the good professional CIA agent, and she will have no memory of the encounters that this man was participating in as related to the sexual assault and sexual abuse this man was participating in, because this man was abusing these women because he was touching these women without their permission or their consent. And he wasn't even looking for a relationship in any way, shape, or form. No, he was looking for a person he could control. He was looking for a person he could subjugate. He was looking for somebody he could break down because he felt powerless about being in a relationship with a woman. And when it comes to a lot of beta males, they feel powerless about their relationships with women, oftentimes due to the dysfunctional way that these men have been raised in environments like single mother households or households with divorced mothers, where they saw the women basically having all the power. And because these men see the women having all the power, they feel the only way they can get power over women is by going out here and looking to break a woman down. And in some ways, these men find gratification in abusing women because they want to humiliate a woman as they participate in these crimes. Brian Jeffrey Raymond is a textbook sexual deviant, and one that, because I've done a lot of research on these types of deviants when I was writing The Man Crisis, and this kind of man wants to get power over women, and he did this over a course of years, keeping his two worlds separate, keeping his secret world secret from his job in the real world. However, everything as related to his worlds wound up falling apart in 2020 when one of the women he wound up drugging in Mexico City woke up from her nightmare. And as she woke up from her nightmare, she wound up screaming on the balcony of that home, calling for help, and finally showing the world that who Brian Jeffrey Raymond was, and showing us the sick sexual predator that he was as related to the deviant behavior he was participating in. Because clearly he again is a deviant, because this is not normal behavior. No, normal, healthy sexual behavior is consented between the two partners. Both of the partners know what they're doing, and both of the partners share in that encounter, and they are free and open to talk about that encounter. It is not some secret that is hidden by one individual, so that they can have power like Brian Jeffrey Raymond had. Now, after he was caught, he wound up being investigated, and they found all of this evidence on his phone of over 500 videos. And this, again, fits that pattern and profile of sexual deviants who oftentimes like to have mementos as related to their encounters and like to have records of their encounters, and they like to have those records of their encounters in secret places so that they can feel comfortable about expressing themselves sexually as they're in the secret world. And that whole secret world wound up falling apart, and the Department of Justice found out about it on his phone, and Brian Jeffrey Raymond thought he could get away on a technicality as related to these crimes, but there was no getting away from his crimes as related to what he thought was an illegal search of his phone, because the Department of Justice had probable cause after this woman was assaulted to search his phone. So with all the evidence against Brian Jeffrey Raymond, he wound up having to plead guilty to these crimes and will be sentenced to 30 years in prison. And he's going to go from having a smooth world to a rough one inside of the federal prison, where he will be dealing with the reality of being confronted by Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, Big Dave, Melvin, and Mr. Sprinkles, and they will be going out here performing all sorts of acts on Mr. Raymond because they don't like sexual predators in prison, and he will be dealing with all kinds of humiliation as he's traded for Little Debbie snack cakes, ramen noodles, packets of Crystal Light lemonade, packets of Crystal Light iced tea, snack pack puddings, off-brand lemon cookies, off-brand chocolate cookies, off-brand duplex cookies, Fritos chips, Kit Kat candy bars, packets of soy sauce, all pretzels. I mean, he's going to be turned out and spit roasted, and he's going to suffer the same pain and humiliation that he put all of those women through inside of that federal penitentiary, where he will be living for the next 30 years. And with him being 47, he will be suffering this torture until he's an old man. But this is par for the course with many beta males who are men in crisis, and this man created a crisis in the lives of over 25 women, and he's getting what he deserves as related to punishment because he truly is a monster. Again, this type of monster is one of the most evil type of individuals as related to beta males, because these sexual deviants, they want to go out here and they don't want to share pleasure with a woman as related to a loving relationship. No, they want to have power over women. They want to see a woman broken down and humiliated. They want to get pleasure by saying that they could go out here and hurt women sexually, and they want to use their hands and penises as weapons to harm women. And this guy's behavior, I'm thank God he was caught, because usually in the case of these types of sexual predators, they wind up escalating their behavior from going out here and participating in sexual abuse and sexual assault to participating in the forcible sexual violation of a woman to further escalating their behavior into serial killing. And this is why this man needed to be taken out off the streets, because with his CIA training, he could cover up crimes for years like he did. And as he escalated his behavior, he could have definitely wound up taking the lives of innocent women as looking for a higher rush for his pleasure. Because usually with these kinds of deviants, what they do is they get a rush from abusing women. And once they wind up at a point where their rush plateaus as related to one level of abuse, they escalate their crimes to other forms of sex crimes, such as the sexual violation of women, and then further escalate that behavior into serial killing. So I thank God this man was caught, and I'm thank God that he is no longer on the streets to be a predator to prey on women, but this is the type of guy that's out here as related to beta males, as related to sex crimes, and this is what makes them some of the most dangerous individuals as related to the man crisis. When it comes to beta males and sex crimes, they are the most dangerous individuals in the entire whole group of beta males, and the crimes that they participate in are some of the most heinous kinds of crimes that are presented. Now, I find it interesting that the mainstream media did not really cover this story, and it was hard to find reports of this story of Brian Jeffrey Raymond's alleged behavior like I would for the case of Bill Cosby. Now, Bill Cosby was accused of participating in the exact same crime as Brian Jeffrey Raymond, but we saw Bill Cosby in the media practically every day. However, when it came to Brian Jeffrey Raymond, the mainstream media was quite silent, and that shows me how racist the media is as related to this white male who was a clear and present danger as a sexual predator. The mainstream media kept quiet about the story of Brian Jeffrey Raymond, who was preying on women. But in the case of Bill Cosby, as related to allegations of sex crimes, the mainstream media went out here and was covering the story 24/7. Now, some will excuse and say, oh, Bill Cosby's a celebrity, but I see a clear double standard here, and I see how that racist double standard basically kept a lot of women in danger, because here was a white male sexual predator who was preying on women all across the globe, but the mainstream media didn't do many reports on this man who was employed by the CIA and kept this man's name out of mainstream media outlets. I find that to be quite scary, because it shows how those in government aren't taking the man crisis very seriously, because this man crisis is something we need to take seriously, because the more we deny that there is a man crisis, the more it allows sexual predators like Brian Jeffrey Raymond to remain on the street and allow them to prowl these streets looking to prey on innocent women. So this whole case, again, is one that's troubling to me as related to the lack of coverage, because this man clearly was a sexual predator, and he had admitted to participating in this sexual predation, but no one wanted to talk about it, and nobody wants to talk about the dangers of beta male sexual predators. That's what's really scary to me, because these, again, are some of the most dangerous sexual predators in the entire group of beta males. And the faster you stop these guys, the faster you make the world safer for everyone, because these men are known to escalate their behavior, and that's what's scary about them. But this whole incident just shows me how these guys can lurk for many years and not be caught. So these are some of the again, I'm going to keep repeating it, most dangerous sexual predators, and they are the reason why we really need to really think about the way we raise boys to become men, because all of the shame some women have as related to sexuality, they teach the boys to repress their natural masculinity and their sexuality, and this is what leads from a boy growing up to become a healthy man to becoming a dangerous sexual predator who is a man who creates a crisis among women in America and abroad. Now, if you want to learn more about the dysfunctional behaviors of beta males and how these males wind up becoming a clear and present danger to all around them, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you want to see me make more videos about The Man Crisis, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, subscribe.
Now available in paperback and e-reader from the author of Spinsterella, A Strange and Unusual Romance, and Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black comes from legendary Magazine. And you get the conclusion of the Spinsterella trilogy in paperback and e-readers at online booksellers today. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spinsterella. Discover the dark side of love in this goth and lovely romance with Spinsterella. Get Spinsterella in paperback and e-readers at your favorite online bookseller today.
Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.